Hello and welcome to Two Words Wolves Pod. I'm Ryan Eichten and with me is Leo Sun. Leo, how you doing?
It's good to be back, Ryan. I feel like it's been almost a whole year since I've been with you. I think last we potted together was that first week of January 2025. And so I'm back now. Happy to see you again and hear from you. I've been following every episode. So, shout out to Jake and to Travis for coming on. But, coming back for my throne. But in a real sense, it's been kind of scary around these parts. So I live in Southern California, and I'm fortunate enough that where I live with my wife and my dog, like we're in a pocket that's not as affected by the wildfires, like directly. Like we didn't have too much smoke or bad air quality here, but it's like we had fires all around us, and so it feels weird because aside from maybe losing power for a day or two, in my work, the college that I work at, they lost power for pretty much almost a whole week. So that's been a little bit weird, but it just kind of puts things in perspective about like what's really important. As much as I'm like, oh, I really want to watch these Wolves games, it's like just making sure, all right, well, what else could really be affected other than just, a poor shooting night by Anthony Edwards or Julius Randle not playing defense. Like, all right, well, I don't need to worry about that as much, or I shouldn't be. So, but, I'm fortunate to be here, knock on wood. The fires are hopefully done for this season. But yeah, I mean, the wind's picking up a little bit today again, but I don't think it's going to be too bad.
Yeah, well, glad to hear that you and your family are doing okay. Didn't get affected as much as other people. Just being 10,000 feet away from it, it seems like it's been really tough for a lot of people. So glad you got away from that. Luckily.
Yeah, I didn't have to deal with the real life fire, but I did have to deal with it seems like the fire on the court with the Timberwolves in terms of the way they've been playing. So, being affected by that a little bit, not gonna lie. So
yeah, since we've last done a podcast, it's been up and down basically as it's been all year. Since I've last done a pod, they beat the New York Knicks, and then they've lost these last two to Cleveland and Memphis. But we can kind of dive right into this Memphis game. They went down early again, like 7-0. Then they were up double digits in the first half, only to kind of, it's kind of feeling like the same kind of script is they just are not able to close games. They had a 5-point lead late, and then basically offense went nowhere, couldn't stop Memphis from scoring in the paint. It was just, I calculated, so Memphis had 37 second or fourth quarter points. 35 of them were either in the paint or at the free throw line.
wow.
So just not able to stop them after honestly stopping them the entire game, which has kind of been a theme. But yeah, the first holler foul I kind of wrote down here. The Wolves need to change something with their late game approach. So holler foul on that for you, Leo.
I'm going how. I do think that something needs to change with their late game approach. We've talked about how the Wolves have played so many clutch games. Right now, if NBA.com stats is current, they played 28 clutch games so far this season, which is definitely the most in the NBA right now. Second place is the Warriors with 26, which they've been tied with us for a while. But as far as late game execution, anti-hero ball was kind of what it came down to today. The game was hanging in the balance. He was taking a lot of tough pull-up three-pointers, and we've kind of lived and died by him so far this season. And today we died by it. Memphis was living at the free throw line, and we just kind of reverted to our perimeter shooting. And I went back and I was reviewing the first 42 games of the season. So like that first half leading up all the way till today. Today's was the first game of the second half technically of the season. And there's out of the 28 clutch games, I was kind of keeping like a little scoreboard to track. Out of those 28 games, how many of them were kind of decided by Ant going hero ball mode? And so, there's no official stat for this is by Leo Sun's, tally here, but there were 8 games that Ant has kind of shot us into a win, games against Sacramento, Denver, obviously. We remember the ones against the Clippers, Christmas, those games, right? But then there's also 8 games that he shot us out of. So, of course, the 2 Memphis games, Golden State as well, too. So it's kind of 50-50. It's kind of 500, which is ironic because the Wolves have been pretty much playing 500 ball all season long. So if that's what the Wolves want to be, then no, okay, don't change anything with their late game approach because that's what they're doing. They give it to Amp. It's a coin flip. But if they have larger aspirations, which I feel like the whole team does, they do need to change that a little bit. They played with such great ball movement for a handful of these recent games, all of 2025 this month so far. And then it really, really just dies down at the end. And I think something needs to change. So it's a howl for me. What about you, Ryan?
Yeah, something clearly needs to change. they have played the most clutch games, like you said. They've been up and down in those, mostly down. But like a game like tonight, it was just so clear that like Rob Dillingham was their best point guard on the floor, and their offense kind of died when he left. I think that was, in retrospect, a mistake to pull Rob, but also like ultimately like this team coming into the season planned for Mike to be their starting point guard, and he was such a big part of their success last year that it's hard to like get too up in arms about them playing Mike Conley down the stretch, because like they need Mike. And like I think honestly for the team to reach whatever ceiling they have, it's probably going to be with Mike Conley kind of playing well. But like something's just got to change, because like you said, the hero ball hasn't been great. The defense late in games, despite being good on the season as a whole, just hasn't been there. And I don't know how they kind of, it's not exactly like kind of the scripts they've had earlier where they didn't get down huge. It was just like a slow shooting start. And they didn't.
I think they were down 11 in the first quarter, if I recall.
Right.
They were down big. But anyways, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
But like they were up 11 against Cleveland, and then that changed. Like I just think I didn't feel like it was like they've been down like 20 in first halves before. Like I didn't think it was that, and they had the lead at the end of the first quarter, but like, and it wasn't. I wouldn't call it a late game collapse in this sense. It's like they just got beat down the stretch. Not great, obviously, but wasn't as disastrous as some of the other games have been, or like earlier this month, the OKC and Boston games where they had like just these disastrous quarters where they win 3 of the quarters, and just so it's like with a lot of their losses in and of themselves, they aren't that crazy. Like losing to Memphis in that way, it is what it is. Certainly, like I thought the Cleveland game, like two of their recent games, I've thought have been like almost like there's very little to take away from this game. And I thought like Cleveland on the second night of a back-to-back, and that Washington game where they played terrible and then won. I was just like, the Washington game especially, I just remember walking out of that and being like, I'm not taking a single thing good or bad from this game. They won when they needed to win. This is nothing. But I'm not exactly sure. I do like something needs to change. And I think playing the right guys down the stretch. Like one thing I saw, like Naz got pulled kind of late in the game, but he had played like 11 straight minutes. So that maybe they need to look into getting Naz entered into games sooner in the second half so that he has minutes left over for down the stretch. I just think something's got to change. And it's kind of frustrating figuring out exactly what that is, because I do feel for Finch in the sense of it does feel like when he does try stuff, it doesn't always work, or it's not about something he tried. It's about the players on the court themselves.
Yeah, Ant was talking about it in the post game today in the locker room where they were asking him, what happened there at the end, that, when the game got away, and he had said that, well, he didn't feel like they had any defensive lapses per se. It wasn't like these turnovers that, have been killing us so much. It wasn't like turnovers and they were getting shots off. They just kind of weren't going in, and they were making shots. But, sure, black and white, you look at that, you look at the box, well, yeah, they made shots, we missed shots. But when you look at the process, like I'm not going to claim to be like an armchair coach here and say that I know what the right answer is. But clearly you could tell, like, they were attacking Julius Randle when he was out there, and he was getting pretty much whatever he wanted. He was backing down Julius Randle, and he hit the same reverse pivot over his left shoulder, and no contest. And they were just going over and over. So it wasn't that they made some tough shots, and they were making easy shots. Meanwhile, Ant, he was profiting from the free throw line so much all game. I mean, he got to double-digit free throws in the first half, and that really tailed off at the end. And again, I understand it's easy for me to say as a fan, as a spectator watching, say, well, just go to the rim when they're really loading up. But he took so many. I don't recall him shooting one like layup, other than I think he had one that he kind of turned it over maybe when he was driving, or he kind of bobbled it and had a bad pass or something. But yeah, most of his shots at the end were all perimeter jump shots, and so there's the quality of shots were very different, and that's what happens when the offense bogs down, as opposed to moving it around. I mean, Ant was not Ant. Naz was open for a wide open 3 on one of his pull up threes that Ant took. Even that last play as well too, where 4 seconds coming down full court, full speed, and he pulls up to shoot a step back 3-pointer over 2 guys when Naz had advantage like in the paint. And so I know it's Ant, we live and die with that, but that's some of that ball movement that's missing in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I think running more late game sets would probably help, running more like specific actions, but they have last Grizzlies game, they did run a specific set, and it either, I don't know if we ever got a great answer to what happened on that play, but like it either got blown up or Ant blew it up himself.
Right.
Probably somewhere in between. So yeah, it feels like you pull one lever and like it leads to another reaction. One thing I thought was interesting was they didn't play Gobert much down the stretch. When they did have him in there, like Bane went at him twice and scored. And then on the offensive end, he had just one of those terrible turnovers where he gets it in space and just kind of is too far away from the basket to shoot, doesn't have anyone to easily pass to, and turns it over. And then they do take him out, which I think is what a lot of people like us have been calling for when it's just not a good game from him or not a good matchup for him. They do pull him, and Jaren Jackson backs down Julius Randle and makes an easy shot. And so it's like that's the classic Gobert push and pull of they can't defend well enough with him on the bench and they can't score enough with him on the court. And then especially like this season when he hasn't been playing as well, they often aren't getting like the top league defense with him on the court either. And so it's just kind of leading to more questions where like I don't think if the answer is play Gobert less, I just kind of think like they're screwed. They don't have the personnel to have Gobert be playing 20 minutes a night or less and win against teams like Memphis. So they kind of have to get it figured out. We either with him offensively or get him back playing. I don't know. We'll talk about kind of Gobert and a little bit later, but yeah, was there anything else you thought they kind of need to change down the stretch of games?
No, I mean, again, like Finch kind of alluded to this. Was a cut before he made the starting lineup change? I think right before where he was saying that like there's a chain reaction effect, right? So when you make a change, it's going to affect something else, and so that's kind of what we're seeing right now. And so we'll see what happens. I mean, you did mention that these have been tough opponents on tough travel schedules, so yeah, that's definitely a thing. So I'm not super defeated by it, even though yes, it is very frustrating to kind of see these same end of game results.
Yeah, for sure. One bright spot, if we're gonna start playing the moral victory card here early in the pod. Since returning from his ankle injury and kind of G League rehab stint, Dillingham has been averaged 12 points per game in the last 3 games, just playing only 16 minutes a game too. He's looked great by my eye. Kind of the last game against Cleveland, not the greatest shooting night, but they got him plenty of minutes that night. But Howl or Foul, the Wolves need to lean on Rob minutes, even if it means the immediate results are kind of lacking defensively or whatever. Just Howl or Foul on playing Rob more minutes.
A howl, absolutely for me. A howl. I'll admit that I was someone that I was a little bit hesitant on Rob's impact. It was a little bit maybe too Jamal Crawford esque for me for my liking his game, and so I was a little bit worried about how that was going to hold up this year. But I think at this point, it's really starting to feel undeniable. If y'all listeners remember, Chris Finch said this. I think it was during preseason. Even before preseason, that he's expecting 1 out of every 3 games from Rob to be a good game. And so if you just think about like these last 3 games, like real quick, Ryan, like how would you rate his performance between, as simply as good game, average game, and bad game? So those 3 scores, what would you give him for the game against New York, Cleveland, and Memphis?
I mean, Memphis, I'd say good game. New York game, I think was fine, maybe closer to good. And then the Cleveland game, I would call it bad, but not in the bad just because he didn't shoot well. I thought the other parts of his game were fine, and the defense is always going to be everything with Rob is like caveat that like he's costing them defensively.
Right.
Right. With the idea that through effort and through like knowing the game more, they can cover him up better. But yeah, like 1 good, 1 fine, 1 bad is how I would.
So that's pretty close, right? That's pretty close to what we're saying. And so when he's having a good game, for example, this game against Memphis, Finch has to take advantage of this 1 good game. You can't take him out. I understand he played a long stretch of minutes maybe there. Rob did say in the postgame that he was feeling a little bit tired, but once he got a little bit of a breather off the bench, he put him back in. And I was skeeting this out on the Canis Hoopus Blue Sky account about how, like, in the fourth quarter, Finch first benched Rob for a little bit. I was like, no, please do not bench him, put him back out. So Finch put him back out for like a couple minutes and then put in Conley to kind of finish the game. And it's just so frustrating because we're seeing that good game. I mean, I would go so far as to say his New York game was, between average to good, like you were saying as well, too. And Cleveland, yeah, he kind of stuffed the staff sheet, or he kind of fixed his box score a little bit at the end. He made a couple garbage time buckets. But, we've spoken about like how injury is going to breed opportunity. And that's like, been clearly what's going on now. He has the opportunity now with Donte out. We'll talk about him in a little bit. But, after the loss, I mean, he said that, Rob said that he's feeling a lot more carefree. He's not as, fearful of messing up anymore. And even if I do mess up, like, it's okay. Like, I got to keep playing with confidence. And so as he's building that, we can't stunt that growth because, yes, not only is it going to be paying dividends further into the future, but even as you can see from this game against Memphis, like, it's yielding results now as well too. I'm not saying he's ahead of the curve, but when he's having that good game, you really got to lean into that. So when we say how or foul, like leaning into Rob's minutes, it might come at the expense of immediate results. Well, today was an example of leaning into Rob minutes could have came at the benefit of immediate results. So yeah, I definitely think he needs to play a little bit more. And if you think about these three games against Memphis, Cleveland, New York, New York, Cleveland being back to back, these are all high seed playoff contenders. Like these are solid teams that he's playing against. He's not like having a good game against the Washington Wizards or having a good game against the Utah Jazz. Like these are solid. So yeah, I definitely think he needs more time.
Yeah, and just kind of box score looking at it, like this has just been a trend. All the starters were negative, and everyone that came off the bench was positive, including a team lead plus 16 for Dillingham, meaning they won the minutes he was on the court by 16 points, and they lost the minutes he was off the court by 18 points. So, like, I mean, it's more complicated. But, like, if not for Rob Dillingham, they probably lose this game by a lot of points. And, like, it's just kind of frustrating that it almost feels like, other than Ant, they're starting their worst four guys at the expense of like their best three guys coming off the bench. And maybe that goes back to like changing something in the post game, but like, or in the clutch time late in games. But like, yeah, it's just frustrating to see like Mike is struggling all game. He's had better games and they go with him down the stretch. I remember asking Finch earlier in the season why he decided to go with Mike instead of someone else, and he had a similar response that like they've won a lot of games with Mike, and I get it. And I like I said earlier, it's not the worst decision, but like it's just kind of frustrating, like especially as this team kind of slips further and further from title contention or playoff contention or whatever, like to not be prioritizing one of your younger guys is also a part of it that I don't think like they should be prioritizing winning on every single night anymore. Like it should be about next year, because while I'm not like giving up on this year, I think like we've seen that they played Memphis twice. Like what team in the West would you like? What team in the West scares you? And it's just one to me. Like,
sure,
I'm not saying they're better than XYZ team, but like we've seen them play Memphis twice. Could they beat Memphis in the series? Absolutely. Could they beat Houston in the series? Absolutely. So like, it's not to give up in this season, but like, it just seems like their chances of winning 4 straight playoff series, at least two of which have to come against OKC and then like Boston or Cleveland or New York, whoever comes out of like that is just like so far away from what the team is right now. Like there needs to be some sort of prioritization of next year's roster.
Yeah, absolutely. There has to be not only the prioritization of it, but also the investment on it, right? I mean, you're investing into this paying off into the future. And so, when we think about that late game collapse today against Memphis, it's quite interesting when you think about when Memphis made a couple runs before that final fourth quarter run. In the third quarter, they cut it within 4, and then Rob Dillingham hits these like gorilla nuts, like pull up 3-pointer to kind of bail them out. And then he had an assist to Ant right after that, and kind of built up that lead a little bit. Same thing early in the fourth quarter. They cut it all the way to the Grizzlies cut it all the way to within, I think it was 1 point, and then Dillingham just goes streaking down on the transition. I don't even think it was off a missed shot or turnover. He just goes streaking down the court. He hits a pretty contested, tough layup. And you think about when the offense broke down late in the game, they needed another creator. Julius Randle was frigid from perimeter. He couldn't hit a freaking shot. Naz Reid was hitting shots, but I mean, you could see he was getting frustrated by the officiating. That was clearly affecting his shooting at the end as well, too. And so you needed someone else that could hit a shot. And Mike Conley, like you said, he had a couple great spurts against the Knicks and against the Cavs, but today he just did not have it. And you put him out there, that's a guy that's not going to be. He missed an open corner 3, I think, at one point late in the game today as well, where that could have been someone else that needed to have been a threat. And Jaden's always never constantly a threat when he's out there. So you're putting Ant out there by himself with 4 guys at the end of the game today that was not going to facilitate any offense or help them score any points when they really, really needed it. So yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, and just looking at the starters, like this again, Randall 0 of 7 from 3, McDaniels 1 of 6 from 3. All 6 of those are wide open. And Mike 1 of 4 from 3. That's 2 of 17 from your non-Ant starters. Ant goes 3 of 8, so like the bigger number is like the limiting. He didn't get double-digit attempts like he usually does. But like you just can't have the we can throw in Gobert's 0 of 0. You can't have the 4 of 4 four other starters going 2 of 17 from 3.
Right.
Like it's just it makes him like as much as like I call for Ant to do more, and we can say he didn't do well enough down the stretch of the game. Like it's just making it way more difficult for him. Even if they throw in Naz in there, even if they throw in Dillingham in there, you're still gonna have 2 guys you don't trust to hit 3-point shots. And that just kind of feels like ultimately like a hamper that's going to hamper this roster. They just don't have this like between like McDaniels, Gobert, and Randall just can't share the court together down the stretch of games. It's just not good enough shooting. And like Randall shot it pretty well this year. He usually hit it at least 2 or 3 of 7 attempts, but like ultimately it's not even about if they go in. It's how much the other team respects that person as a shooter, and they don't respect Daniels, and they sure as hell don't respect McDaniels.
Yeah, I think that's a great segue into our third topic about Julius Randle. You talk about his perimeter shooting, and he's averaged 14.2 field goal attempts per game in the first half of the season. And these last 3 games, he's shot just over 10. He shot a little bit more today, but he had 5 today. And how or foul for you, Ryan? Do you feel that less field goal attempts for Julius Randle should be the trend moving forward?
I'm going to say foul, especially with Donte out. They just don't have a ton of scorers. I mean, I think we all hope that like they kind of lean into Rob more, but like there's certainly going to be matchups where Rob is not a great fit. They just need people to score. And so I don't think like limiting his shot attempts is really going to help the offense, because honestly, I think especially offensively, he's been largely scapegoated for their offensive issues, especially like those turnovers where like he's backing people down and like has a bad turnover. Well, obviously that's not great. That is so much more about his teammates on the court not cutting and not moving than it is on anything else. So I don't think limiting. I mean, obviously, like Ant needs to be the focal point of the offense. Like if shots are coming at the expense of Ant, that's bad. But like, I don't think like trying to limit his field goal attempts is really the answer, because they need points anywhere they can get them. And Randall's, especially with Donte out, is one of their better offensive players. So.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I'm also saying foul on that. Today obviously was most disappointing. I mean, you talked about it earlier. He missed all 7 of his 3-point attempts, and he was missing them by a lot too. These weren't like, oh, they kind of rattled out. These were microphone thudders, like the ones if you're wearing headphone, like headphone wearers beware when you're listening to him shoot those threes. But like you said, he has to take those shots, especially as you said with DiVincenzo being out indefinitely. We'll talk about that later, but hopefully it's not too long a season-ending injury. But that says, I mean, he's shown himself capable of heating up and hitting threes. There's been stretches throughout the season. I know overall, I think shooting about 34% on the season, which is, sadly still better than Jaden McDaniels is for the season. But he has to present himself as a threat. So if he's not shooting that 3, then it's going to make life even harder for Ant than however difficult already he is. That said, I mean, he's a scorer, and I will say that recently it feels like his defense has been increasing a little bit. His energy, I feel like I've been seeing it increase a little bit. It doesn't mean that he's out there being a Herb Jones or something like that. But, he had 2, I think, weak side rotation blocks today. That was like super encouraging. I had to double check. I rewound. I was like, wait, was that Julius Randle that just came up with that block shot right there? He did that twice against the Grizzlies. He has a good energy as well, too, against the Cavs as well, too. He had a couple great sequences, covering the low man the right way and the right time. But that said, so long as he's on the Timberwolves, we can't ignore the type of offensive value that he has, whether it's scoring for himself or creating for others, because that's really who he is. So I would say we don't need to limit his field goal attempts, or you shouldn't be intentionally trying to limit it. how odd was that too, Ryan? Like that game against the Knicks where, it's this big emotional homecoming game for him and he shot like 6 field goal attempts or something like that. It looked like he was
Mm-hmm.
almost trying to prove a point or something, but whatever the case was, I think less field goal attempts isn't bad. I don't care if it's, to be honest, if it's more or less. Just I think I could do with maybe a little bit less slow ISO, like 10 dribble back down opportunities where he's getting stripped now, because I feel like the scouts have always known this about him, but they're starting to, pick and choose against, you see these quality teams like Memphis, Cleveland, New York. They really have this scouted in their defensive game plan that, once he starts pounding that ball, come from the weak side, easy strip. And his teammates aren't warning him. So, I think he should shore that up. But overall, I think, he has to shoot his way out of this current slump that he's in. I think he was against New York. He shot Cleveland. He shot 1 of 5 from 3. And this today, obviously, over 7. But I think he'll come out of it.
Yeah, I think it's important to distinguish between a bad shooting night and a bad game. And to me, this Memphis game was more about a bad shooting night. Now that these bad shooting nights occur too often, and like I said, with McDaniels and Gobert on the court, it's just a bad fit with those three. So I'm not even sure. My question would be can they survive with only 2 of those guys on the court? In a big picture sense, I'm not even sure of that. To me, it's if you're gonna have, McDaniels and Randall, yeah, you probably can because they at least make threes. But just Randall and Gobert out there is tough, and McDaniel So I just think it's more of a bad shooting night. He's 0 of 7 for 3. If that's 2 of 7 and he hits an extra 2-point shot instead of 2 of 6 from 2-point, he's 3 of 6, and he's got, what would that be, 13 points? Then you're looking at 13 points, 11 rebounds, 7 assists, 2 blocks, and 1 turnover. That's a fantastic game. So while I'm not saying it's a good game from him, but he had 11 rebounds, he had 7 assists, and only 1 turnover. So I think it's kind of because of the cat trade, because of how the season has gone, and I'm not saying I'm some big believer in Randall, but I just think so much is getting put on him that isn't his fault. Can he play better? Can he do X, Y, and Z better? Of course, but he had 11 rebounds. The big thing is 7 assists. I think you just don't notice kind of the offensive gravity he can have. But ultimately it's a make or miss league is the cliche, and if he makes 2 of 7 from 3 instead of over 7, they probably win the game. So
yeah, while he's on the team, we have to use him the best way that we can, and which is as an offensive weapon, right? And you can ask whether or not he should be on the team, but while he's here,
right,
we have to take advantage.
Yeah, I will probably do it closer to the deadline, but what can you get from him? It really, trading Randall to me really goes down the line of preparing for next year, because if you're trading Randall, you're hacking off so much of your ceiling as a playoff team to me, just because you're just gonna have, given what you're probably getting back, I don't see it there. But we'll kind of save the Randall trade discussion and trade whoever else discussion for closer to the deadline. But for now, we'll move on to certainly a more frustrating topic. Donte DiVincenzo's injury. He has a grade 3 toe sprain, and is out indefinitely. Just kind of reading the leaves in the Twitter doctors, what have you. Could be anywhere. It'll be at least 2 months, almost certainly, and could be up to 6 months. So the 2-month time frame would put him probably late March, early April, which is kind of most of the, if not all, the rest of the regular season. And the 6-month side of it would be the end of his season. So they're getting a second opinion. I don't think it's worth reading into if that means it's closer to 6 months and they're trying to find someone. That I don't think it's worth reading into that any more than what they've officially put out. But he's going to be out for a while, and certainly the playoff seeding is going to be more determined in games that he misses than he makes, because I think an optimistic timetable, and this is not reported, this is just kind of reading what 2 to 6 months would mean. An optimistic timetable would be like what they got from Cat last season, where they get him acclimated at the end of the regular season, getting ready for the playoffs. That might be close to the best case scenario, unfortunately. So kind of howl or foul, DiVincenzo's absence will torpedo this Wolves season.
I'm going howl, and I mean that given the expectations of the team. team that went to Western Conference Finals last year, made a big trade, and it's been mixed results so far. But you started to see the gear starting to turn, where it's like, all right, well, it's still maybe like a second round team at least. Maybe that's still possible. But without Donte, just given the fact that again, even if he returns, he's got to ramp up. This isn't just like some like finger injury or something like that. I mean, this is a toe injury. I mean, you're on your toes all the time, and the way that he plays. I mean, he plays a aggressive style where he's crashing, rebounds, he's getting dirty, he's diving on the floor, and so it's definitely going to affect the way that he's going to play. So I think that it will torpedo the Wolves season in a sense that they're not going to hit their expectations. I agree that the Wolves are deep with their whole 8 starters, but he's the best volume shooting perimeter threat that Ant has, and he's a big reason why we even made the Cat trade to begin with, is because of what he was going to bring. And so we can't just pretend like, all right, well, he's just like, one of the last of the 8. Like, no, when Donte's been healthy, especially ever since, I think his last 15 games, like mid-December till now, he was arguably the second or third most important player on the team for us, especially in this recent stretch. And so you just can't make that up. The amount of volume shooting that he presents at that clip, at that efficiency, the rebounding out of his area, the hustling on D. Some of those things you feel like, oh, well, maybe if you squint, like Nickeil Alexander-Walker, he's had a pretty good season, and he could do that as well. And I'm not arguing against that. I love Nickeil, but you've seen some of the offensive inconsistency. I mean, he's not the shooter that Donte is by any means. And it's not to say that Naz is a bad shooter. It's just Donte is just such an elite shooter. And so I think the scale really is tipping this season more from, all right, we have postseason goals from last season that we want to make, to now this is a developmental year. We're going to figure out what we have and how we want to transition to the future. So I feel like this injury really, really like adds a couple more, blocks onto that scale of the developmental year. What about you, Ryan? What do you think?
Yeah, I'm gonna go I'm gonna go foul in the sense of the expectations that you talk about, I have already kind of before the injury kind of gotten rid of those. For better or worse, this team is just not does not have the playoff season ceiling of a year or two ago or last year. And that's due to a lot of different factors. We can talk about what those factors are, but they just don't have it. Even with Donte in the lineup. So in the sense of I've kind of already gotten rid of that, I'm going to say foul and it torpedoing their season given their current 1 game above 500 record. I don't think, they're going to miss him desperately, but I don't think like this is the end of their season. Like I wouldn't say they can't make the playoffs now. They can't get a top 6 seed. I think that's still all in front of them. It's just going to be a little bit harder. But I just think that like they do have a lot of depth on this team. We just look at how Rob played. If they can get that from Rob, like that's going to soak up a lot of the minutes. But I do agree with you. If he is out for the rest of the season, or if he's out most of the regular season, like it makes it even harder to see how they're winning 4 straight, 2 straight, 3 straight playoff series in a row. But on the flip side, I kind of each of these losses they have to these top teams, I kind of go away from it thinking like, I don't know, I can beat that team. I'm not seeing. The West is incredibly deep, but it's also not top heavy like the East is. Like I don't even like. Obviously, like you get like OKC is as good as anyone, but like I think like how many teams in the East would be top 2 in the West? I would say at least 3, right? Boston, Cleveland,
New York,
and New York.
Yeah,
I think all of those teams are at a like a peak healthy version of those teams are better than anyone else besides OKC. So yeah, they're gonna miss Donte, and it just stinks because Donte is one of the kind of not foundational. He's going to be, if you're like ranking who's going to be with the team the longest, Donte is probably close to that list behind Ant. Because that's why they made the Cat trade, is they believe in him. But I don't think it'll torpedo their season. I think they still can. Like for me, my goal is like make the playoffs. Like you need to get Ant as many playoff reps as you can, and getting to a playoff series, and probably maybe my goal is get to a winnable playoff series, which would basically be not Oklahoma City.
Right. Yeah, I think that's it. And I would love to see, I mean, we've seen what this has done for Rob, obviously, in these 3 games. Maybe it was coincidental timing, obviously, with Rob coming into the lineup back from his ankle injury right when Donte went out. But he's got a little bit more of a longer leash now, too, because Finch needs creators. He needs shooters out there, and Rob obviously has proven that he can be that. So that's great. I love to see kind of what happens as well too. I know Terrence Shannon has been a name that's come up a lot in social media. Fans want to see him play because he does kind of bring that offensive scoring threat and maybe tenacious kind of defender type vibe. But he's also out with a mid-foot sprain for at least a month or two as well too.
Yeah.
So that kind of sucks. So we won't really get to see that. So it's going to be gut check time. We'll see what the Wolves are made of now.
Yeah, I think this is kind of their roster moving forward. Kind of like to see Minot get in the rotation a little bit more. Kind of confused on the choice, like Ingles last game and Garza this game. Like, why are those the guys? But it is what it is, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I will give. Look, I am not like a Luka truther like a lot of people are out there, but he did play. You know what? I mean, Rudy picked up 2 quick fouls, and he was already kind of hobbled out there. We'll talk about that next. But I mean, Luka. Look, shout out to Luka. 4 minutes. I think he was a plus 13 out there. He only logged 1 rebound and 1 turnover, 2 fouls, like in the box score. But he had at least 2 plays where he saved a couple possessions. I think he forced the Grizzlies to turn it over, like to not secure a defensive rebound once or twice. And so you kind of mix it up in there. So shout out Luka. He went out there. He played with a little bit more tenacity rebounding the ball than Rudy did, but we'll hop into that next, I guess. So, Ryan, our topic number 5, the 2 oldest players on the Timberwolves, which are 2 of the oldest, at least, in Mike Conley and Rudy Gobert, have both seen lower production lately. And so for you, Ryan, Howell or Foul, this is who they are now.
For me, I'm going to go Foul. I don't think they're going to continue to be this bad. Rudy's funk, I don't know how much he's got like this ankle injury that he's dealing with. I don't know how much his kind of lack of defensive prowess and rebounding is due to that. It's hard to say. But they both clearly taken a step back this year. And to me, like that's the biggest. Them and Jaden kind of regressing or maybe Jaden's just kind of plateauing in their games. Like that's been the biggest reason. It's not the cat trade to me. Like that's kind of my biggest takeaway is most of their issues are stemming from non-cat issues, or at the very least, what's gone on this season kind of makes the cat trade make more sense. The reason they're not a title contender is not because of Randall. It's not because they're missing Cat, although having Cat would help. It's because some of their key players, Mike and Rudy, have taken steps back. And so to be honest, if that's going to happen, they're in such a better financial spot now than they were with Cat on the roster. So as much as like I hate to say it, and as much as I think fans are right to kind of feel jaded by the whole thing, the Cat trade kind of unfortunately makes more sense than it did when it happened. But what do you think? Do Mike and Rudy have a turnaround in them, or is this kind of what we're expecting from them?
I'm going the opposite with you. I'm saying how, and that this is who they are now. I remember Rudy twisting. He rolled his ankle in the Cavs game. It was near the end of the game. I think he stepped on someone's foot. It was one of the last possessions, I think, and he just kind of fell down. And it was really awkward because it was one of those where he takes a step, and usually, you step on someone, you roll it. We've seen that happen to Ant and countless other players. But the way he just kind of toppled over and got up. And I understand he's a large man. He's kind of lanky. He moves kind of awkwardly, but you saw that a ton today in the Memphis game as well, too. I don't know if Rudy, again, maybe he's really hurt or whatever the case was, but he moves in a way, and I skeeted this out. It was like Rudy moves like, if you ever played like NBA 2K or any type of basketball video game, and you're playing it for one of the first times, and you're still trying to learn the buttons, like, oh shoot, wait, that one was passed. Like, oh no, I didn't mean to shoot. I didn't mean to press shoot. Like I was trying to pump fake, like he shot it. Rudy plays basketball sometimes, especially on offense. Like when he's around the ball, he's moving around, like someone's controlling him with a remote somewhere that's kind of learning how to play. And again, I say that with all due respect because I understand how much he brings defensively for us, not only just in the last couple of years, but even this year, he's still one of the best, highest win share players on our team right now. So I know that he's still good, but I don't know. I feel like I've been more out on Rudy than I ever have. And like, if he was going to regress this bad, then, maybe trading Cat, like you were saying, was the right thing to do, but maybe trading Rudy was the right thing to do. Now, is Tim Conley, the man who quote unquote, mortgaged our future to acquire Rudy Gobert, going to be willing to trade him for less than that? I highly doubt it. And again, who knows how good Cat would have played if we had him instead of Rudy here. But that said, he either needs to heal up or he needs to kind of like pick himself back up by the bootstrap, because the way that he's rebounding right now, he's being challenged by Finch. I think 2 games in a row now, he's saying that he needs to do a better job rebounding the ball. I think he had 2 rebounds after 20-some minutes of play. That's the same amount that Rob Dillingham had in half the minutes that he played. Um, he's just been caught standing flat-footed a lot on so many occasions where he's like standing under the rim waiting to rebound the ball, right? Where it's just like, dude,
Yep.
go box out, or like just show effort, please. Like, go get it. I don't know if Kyle Anderson needs to be signed on our team so he can punch him again and kind of get him back into it, whatever the case is. But so that's Rudy. And on the Mike side, I feel like he was just turning a corner when he was reinserted into the starting lineup after the Donte injury news. But then, right as I feel like he's, catching a heat wave, he goes really cold today, and it's just not going to cut it. I feel like that inconsistency isn't like, oh, that's who Mike is. No, Mike's never been like an inconsistent player. He's becoming an inconsistent player because he's getting old, and so I'm only expecting intermediate, like, shooting explosions from him here on out. I'm not expecting him to shoot, high 30s or low 40% three like night to night. Like, he's gonna have some nights where, like that OKC game where he was banking in three, where he hit like 3 threes in a row. Like, yeah, maybe we'll get that from him, but I'm not expecting that all the time from him anymore. So it's unfortunate because I love Mike. Can't really say the same about Rudy, but it might be time to start pivoting away from those players and giving more time to Rob and giving Naz more minutes now, or whatever the case is.
Yeah, I do think they'll have like better games than they've had tonight, or even that they've played this season. But like the idea that like Mike and Rudy are gonna anchor at point guard and center like a deep playoff team, that just kind of feels like it's not gonna happen.
Window may have passed, right?
Yep. All right. Well, from there we'll move on to Apex Alpha, who is the leader of the pack this week. For me, we've kind of already talked about it. Rob Dillingham, fantastic. Been back in the rotation of the last 3 games. Really his first extended stretch in the rotation for more than like a game or two. I just think he's looked great. Offense has been great. The playmaking, which was kind of something they focused on in the summer league, in the preseason with him, has been really great. I've liked his the pairing with Naz Reid on the pick and roll, or even Rudy, has just been great. So I just really think they should start leaning into Rob. The defense is gonna be rough. They're going they're gonna give up points with him on the court. But if any team can hide a poor defender, it should be this team. I can't share the court with Mike. He should probably play a lot of minutes with Jaden and Rudy and those guys. But I just think they got to play him. And 17 minutes today might not be enough, honestly. What about you? Who's your Apex Alpha?
Well, I love the Rob Dillingham pick, so I'm not going to go ahead and repeat you because I think you bring up a great point. I mean, personally, I have a lot of pride in seeing him pop up as our Apex Alpha because he is, by my count, the second person of Asian or Pacific Islander descent to play on the Timberwolves after Kyle Anderson. So I love seeing that. But yeah, free Rob. Someone texted me saying, do you have that GIF of the cage line with Derek Williams' face superimposed on it, not getting playing time? Can we do that for Rob? Someone needs to make that because it's free Rob. So,
and I do think big picture, with roster building, they're just gonna really need Rob to be at the very least a starting caliber point guard, and really ideally a fringe or all-star type of player, because they spent a good amount of capital. They don't have any first round picks to trade or swaps to trade, so they're going to really need Rob to continue playing well. But who's your Apex Alpha?
Yeah, no, before I say mine, I'll second that. But not only that, but I think that needs to happen sooner than later, because if Mike is to continue to kind of, go on the decline the way he is, we're going to really, really need a starting point guard soon.
He doesn't need to hit the peak soon, but he needs to be a quality rotation, close to starting level player.
The next couple
maybe
seasons.
Not next year, but eventually.
Yeah. All right, my Apex Alpha is Naz Reid. 2 words, Naz Reid. He's come back a changed man, seemingly, after his high school jersey retirement that he had Thursday night in Jersey over there. It was a big moment for him. Lots of teams showed up, and obviously it was a big night for him. I mean, his story has been one of the best success stories of the entire NBA, just kind of where he came from. And they've done some really great pieces on him on The Athletic about kind of his journey and all the things that he's gone through in his life and all that. So Naz hasn't been playing terrible all season, but he's really stepped his game up ever since Thursday night. He's been lights out from deep. I mean, on average, he's averaging 18 points on 53% shooting in these last 3 games, and that includes 4.3 threes per game. 62% accuracy. That's crazy. I mean, I don't know if he is absorbing the powers of Donte DiVincenzo, but I mean, he is just lights out right now. He's playing like a man who feels like he knows his starting role is right around the corner. And it's not a moment too soon because, as we all know, he has that player option upcoming. And most likely he will probably decline that to renegotiate a longer, more lucrative contract. And so this is the right thing for him to do, is to really hit on the gas right now when we need him the most. So all props to Naz Reid.
Yeah, similar to Dillingham, like they're just going to need Naz to be like a starting caliber power forward in this league. And it's hard to argue that he isn't there already. They just really need to retain him this summer. It'd be really frustrating if they lost him, just so they could bring back Randall. And it was fun seeing his jersey retired, and it's been fun seeing him shoot the lights out because early in the season he was not doing that. It's frustrating that he isn't, because of the rules, isn't extension eligible, because I think they would have gotten that done a long time ago. But they have his bird rights, so they'll be first in line. If they pay him the most or close to the most, you'd imagine that he'll be back here.
Absolutely. I'm really hoping for that, and I'm excited to see as the season goes along how much he continues to step his game up, because we know that even in recent years with Cat injured and him having to step into a starting role, I mean, he's very capable of doing that, and so I would love to continue to see him close games. I mean, he closed today, I think, a possession or two late in the game today, but for the most part, he was closing the game, and I think he missed a shot or two here or there, and he got really frustrated, like I mentioned earlier, with the refereeing. But yeah, love seeing him out there.
Yeah, exactly. Well, he's not the only Wolf that's been frustrated with the officiating, but we'll leave that. We'll leave that for our Lynx season preview. How about that?
Yeah.
Okay, next prey of the week. Who did the Wolves make their prey? Leo, who is the Wolves' prey this week?
We got a new headstone to add, tombstone to add to Ant's dunk graveyard here. Precious Achua of the New York Knicks got posterized by Ant in the game against the Knicks last Friday. He threw down a nasty and one thrunk on Madison Square Garden and the Mecca of basketball. And what I noticed most about that dunk, and I kind of reacted this way too, is that it drew an unusual reaction from the crowd. Like, it was a kind of oohs and ahs. It was kind of one of those, like, if you remember that dunk contest when Dwight Howard came out with the Superman cape for the first time, and he kind of thrunked in like a self-toss alley-oop, and he just kind of threw it in, and no one really knew, like, wait, what did we just see? Did that go in? Did that count? It was the same thing with that Ant dunk where he went up, but not only did he thrunk it in like Blake Griffin did, with those, one-handed, Mozgov jams, but he did it with two hands. Like, I'm not someone that could jump that high, but I've been around enough basketball players to know that how hard that is to get up that high with two hands and to thrunk it down and one. Like, that was nuts. And so the crowd, as I was saying, was kind of like in awe. Even at first, like, Grady and Jim Pete, I mean, they were kind of like, whoa, like, what did he just do? So yeah, poor Precious Achua. I mean, he got added to, again, Ant's been collecting some heads recently again, which is great to see. So Precious Achua was my prey of the week.
Yeah, and it really seemed to turn the tide of the game. Maybe that's just like kind of revisionist history there, but it really did seem to. That was when they took over that game in Madison Square Garden. But my prey of the week, the Wolves team plane. I kind of tweeted about this, but their travel schedule has just been like insane. They've been all over the country. I wrote down some stats. So since basically the game before Christmas, they were in Atlanta on December 23rd. They were in a stretch of 11 of 17 games on the road. That'll be ended on Wednesday in Dallas. During that stretch, they didn't have a single time where they played two straight games at home. So every single home game was followed by a road game. So, I mean, guys talk about like one game home fans or kind of feel like road trips. So they were, in a certain sense, they've been on a 17-game road trip.
Wow.
During that 17-game stretch, they have the hardest strength of schedule in terms of opponent win percentage. They have the most miles traveled in the league, and during that stretch, it's the most games played and most away games played. For comparison, I looked this up. The Los Angeles Lakers have not left Los Angeles almost that entire stretch. During that entire stretch, they played 3 away games, one of which in California, 4 away games. One is the Clippers. That's travel-wise, that's a home game. But they played 3 away games away from Los Angeles, 1 Golden State, very short trip, and then 2 in Texas, Dallas and Houston, which is, again, for travel purposes, basically 1 trip. And they basically got a 2-week stretch without leaving LA. And it's not to come down on the Lakers. Obviously, like, they've personally been through a lot with the fires and all that. So, like, it's more to just, like, compare the opposite of what the Wolves have gone through is like a team like LA where they just haven't left. And you just have to imagine that part of the Wolves like not being able to break out of this 500 slump. They're basically exactly 500. So I said 11 of 17 games in a row. They played 16. They're 500 in those 16. Hopefully they can beat Dallas without Luka to go one game above 500. But like looking at this travel schedule, it shouldn't be surprising that they've gone 500 through it because it's impossible. It's like I don't have a good way to look it up, but this is probably as hard as like a 17 game stretch can possibly be in an NBA schedule. And it's not to like make excuses for them because like they should have won today. They should have beaten the Warriors a week ago. They should have beaten Memphis 2 weeks ago. Like they still had games in there they should win, but like if they're gonna hit the ceiling of this team, which feels like a first round playoff team, get like 4, 5, 6 seed is still on the table. If they're gonna jump back up into there, it was never going to be during this stretch of games. It was always going to be leading into the All-Star break where they have 6 straight home games, and then after the All-Star break when they start playing some of the lesser teams. That was going to be when they were going to start stacking up wins. So like games like today stink because they outplayed Memphis for a lot of it. They could have won. And it feels like they've been losing a lot of these 50-50 games. But like from a big picture sense, they're all right there for them to have. And once this schedule like just stops being impossible, like they're in a stretch of 31 games in 56 days. In that 56-day stretch, they have 5 back-to-backs and only a single game with more than a day rest. Like that's just insane. Crazy. So like I know people don't like to hear excuses, but like it's not an excuse, it's an explanation. And like these people are like these players are human. Like of course they're going to experience like travel and jet lag even if they're flying in fancy planes.
Yeah. What I'm hearing from you, Ryan, is that you're ready for a reorganization of the divisions. You're ready for expansion and for the Wolves to move to the North Division where they're playing in the East Coast and playing more of those teams around them instead. Because, yeah, that is crazy because not only did they play such less rest advantage and all the traveling like you're saying, but they're playing, for the most part, really, really high-quality teams. Like, save for, like, the Wizards or something like that. Most of the teams that they're playing are 500 teams or above playoff teams, or even those elite teams like your Bostons and your New Yorks and teams like that. So it hasn't been easy even just from a opponent standpoint, let alone the travel and the rest. So I'm with you on that.
Yeah, and it's not like they haven't got like they played Orlando when everyone was hurt, and they played New Orleans when everyone was hurt. Like so, it's not like they haven't caught a few breaks either. Like they got a Washington game that was almost they played terrible and still got a fairly easy win. Like so, there's that. But I just like if you're still hoping that this team makes the playoffs, win a playoff series, like this recent stretch of games, like honestly, like has been fine from the output as much as 500 basketball is uninspiring.
Sure. Yeah, I agree with you, and I think hopefully it does slow down. I mean, they still have a bit of I don't want to say gauntlet, but a tough schedule ahead. I mean, as you mentioned, they do play in Dallas again on Wednesday, and then when they come home, I mean, they have the Nuggets waiting for them as well too. And so, there's a couple tough games, but things do kind of slow down a little bit as they head towards that All-Star break. So again, hopefully they continue. I wouldn't be that mad, as you mentioned earlier, if they continue treading water as they get there, and hopefully they can beef up their record a little bit, playing against some of those weaker teams as they're kind of refiguring out their roster now that Donte's out and Rob's getting more minutes, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at leading in the All-Star break, a stretch of games that would be possible to go on a run. They have this stretch. It depends on how Phoenix is playing, but like even just after this. Versus Denver, versus Atlanta, at Phoenix, at Utah, versus Washington, versus Sacramento, Chicago, Houston, Portland. Like all of those games are winnable. They'll be favored in almost all of them, except for maybe at Phoenix. Even at Phoenix, they might be like Phoenix, they're going to be favored.
Rough. Phoenix looking rough. Yeah.
And versus Denver, I don't. They might be underdogs given no Donte, but that's an incredibly winnable stretch of games. And so, like, I'm just kind of pushing back on, like, the season is toast here. And that they've been playing better than their output says, just given the travel schedule. Like, Chris Hine isn't home. He looked at this in the preseason, looked at this and went, well, they don't play at home. I'm going to go to if I'm trying to go to road games, he hasn't, like, come home because it just makes more sense for him to stay on the road. Like, that isn't a normal thing that's possible for him to only miss like a handful of Target Center games and stay on the road for a month. Like, I don't know, it's just insane.
Yeah, we don't need to get too deep into the weeds of the schedule, but I will say to viewers, please do not look at the week leading into the All-Star break. That's not going to be a fun week, so we'll move on.
Yeah, but also like you would have said that about this week, and they won one, lost one, and lost a toss-up. Like they could have gone 2-1.
Sure.
So,
sure.
Yeah, we'll move on to our next segment, playtime. We usually take off our Wolves hat here, look around the league. We're still going to look around the league, but we're going to do it for the Wolves-centric lens. With Randall seemingly kind of a bad fit and Gobert struggling, just kind of want to take a look at like around the league. What kind of players would you say fit with Ant, or like what is like the type of player like at center or at forward that we'd want to see around Ant? I wrote down a couple. On Naz Reid is a pretty damn good start. That kind of leaves open the center position, or at least like another big forward, like star players. And this is more looking at like theoretically. It's not like who could they actually possibly get. So like star players, Bam Adebayo and Anthony Davis would be great. Adebayo's had a pretty disappointing season, but like guys that can shoot, even if it's not knocking down a three, they both probably fit closer like the Randall 3-point kind of inconsistency of it. Although the one season Davis did have a shot, the Lakers won a title. Similar to Adebayo, honestly, when Heat made the finals a couple times. Like guys that can shoot, great defenders. Like Davis is close to a deep. Both of these guys have been like, people complain they haven't won Defensive Player of the Year over Rudy. So that's like obviously like the type of player. But those are star players. If you're looking more at role players, like Brook Lopez, maybe a slightly younger version of Lopez. Miles Turner, I don't know if I haven't paid attention enough of his career, if he's still kind of like a defensive force like he used to be. And then like the two Celtics guys, Kristaps, like I just think Porzingis and Horford were such a big reason. Like you can, they could be an anchor of a defense while also hitting jump shots. So that's kind of like the type of player that I was thinking of, knowing that it's a tough type of player to find. What do you think, Leo?
The question of what players around the league would be a good fit for Ant? I mean, I would love a Steph Curry on my team. I would love a LeBron James on my team. But no, I mean, Mike Dunleavy's having a rough season so far, so who knows? Maybe he'll put Steph on the table soon. But I mean, if we're talking bigs, I agree with you on that type of skill set. That type of large big that can really defend the rim. They don't necessarily have to be a lob threat, but again, they can clean up down there, and can stretch the floor a bit as well too. So I absolutely, feel you on that. I would say I broke my list down into two types. One list is my wish list, and the other one is my realistic list. For my wish list, none other than the big cat from Kentucky himself, Karl Anthony Towns. Seems like a great fit with Anthony Edwards. A big that can stretch to the floor, that can play as a defensive, secondary type guy out there. No, I'm sorry. I had to throw a Cat in there. We've seen what they could do together. So yes, Cat is on my wish list. But obviously, in absolute theory, yeah. I mean, imagine pairing Wemby with Ant. The type of rim protection that you get.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be pretty crazy. KD, that would be pretty wild. Again, we're just doing this for fun, but like KD and Ant, I mean, imagine the vibes that would be on the team if Ant got to play with KD and the amount of memes that would come out of that. And again, if we're talking strictly basketball as well too, I mean, KD, yes, obviously he's longer in the tooth. He doesn't have that much longer career maybe ahead of him, but I mean, he's still playing extremely well right now, despite the Phoenix Suns struggles. He's a knockdown shooter. He's also underrated defender as well too, a rim protector. Last but not least, I'm not even from Minnesota, so I'm not like a homer on this, but having Chet Holmgren on the team would be pretty sweet as well too. A young prospect, pairing up with Ant. I mean, I know fans will eat that up, but he's shown that he could hit threes. I think he's shooting 37% on minimal attempts this year. Great rim protector as well too, if he can stay healthy. So I mean, I think that's like my ultimate wish list, right? Or those guys.
Yeah.
But realistically, if we break it down to guys who were even theoretically like gettable this season, if not in the off season, you got like your John Collins, that type of player. Again, this is realistic, so it should be gettable. And I say this because the Wolves do have very limited resources available to go get players and cap space as well too. So John Collins, I mean, he's shooting 43.8% from three. Again, limited volume, but he's shown that he's really improved that part of it. He has shown the ability to protect the rim. He can rebound, box score wise. Another guy is Isaiah Stewart, aka Beef used to. He's having a rough year this year. He's off the bench. He's kind of fallen off the rotation there, playing behind Jalen Duren. But last year he shot 38.3% from three. Again, limited volume, but again, that's a very easily gettable guy and a guy that can kind of be that enforcer. And he's a strong defender. And then you got random guys like your Obi Toppins, your Jalen Smiths, guys that can kind of hit threes, I can kind of clean up. But I'm not the biggest Nikola Vucevic fan, but I wonder what the cost is for him, because the Bulls really, really want to get off him. I don't know how in the world the Wolves can even get Nikola Vucevic, but that type of player as well too, where he's not going to offer much defensively. So yes, he's missing that, but he's a great 3-point shooter. He can rebound the hell out of the ball as well too. So those are kind of realistic type guys I'm looking at. So, but I agree with you mostly on that type of like large floor spacing, rim protecting bigs.
Yeah, view on Vucevic is going to be after leave Randall and then another contract from the Bulls coming back. But that he's got $21 million. If you're bringing him back, you're probably losing one of Nikhil or Naz in the offseason. So that'd be for only him to be an unrestricted free agent in 2 seasons. Would he fit next to Rudy? I don't know. But yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be a bad player comp. It's just like with Rudy already on the roster. It's hard to imagine that working out. But yeah, I like your picks. I just don't know. I don't know what their appetite to trade Randall is, because that seems to be the only move. And if they are 500 still at the deadline, are they going to look at even just trading him for expiring contracts just to make sure he doesn't pick up his player option? I don't know.
Yeah, that's going to be, trade deadline's only like 2 to 3 weeks away now. It's really coming up quickly. So I wonder how much the Donte DiVincenzo injury is going to affect the calculus that Tim Connelly has to see what they're going to do, in a couple weeks from now, because that's going to be their last chance to really pivot, because there's not a lot of room to work with after the trade deadline. They really got to figure out, okay, well, what are these players going to do? Is Randall going to opt in? Is Naz going to opt in? One would think that they wouldn't, but you never know. Anything could happen right now, and I think that kind of connects to as well too. There's been, at least from across my DMs and chats, like no word on the ownership thing right now, because that could affect the GM thing as well too. So that's to get to the world's over type of thing, but who knows? We're supposed to hear something potentially by end of late January, and we're officially entering late January now, so we'll see.
Yep. All I've heard is that it's unlikely to be settled by the trade deadline, unfortunately, and that it's like up to the panel now, but I don't remember what I read, that they went into submission and now they have 3 weeks to decide. So we're just kind of playing the waiting game. And as far as DiVincenzo, I think we just kind of hear, because if he's out 6 months and the season's over, yeah, that does change a lot versus like 2 months and they get him back for the playoffs or the regular season. So yeah, we're just kind of at the waiting game for all of that. I think there's not much to kind of speculate about until we're closer to the deadline, because the Wolves have we need a lot more information in hand before we decide on, or before the team decides on what is kind of best for moving forward.
I just imagine Tim Connelly sitting in his den, dimly lit room, with a fifth of vodka, just there thinking about like, all right, who's going to be my boss for the theoretical future of my career here in Minnesota? And on one end, he's like thinking like, I could just blow this entire team up and get the hell out of here this summer. And on the other end, he has this grandmaster plan where he's like, all right, we're about to land ourselves Victor Wembanyama with this massive trade here, and there's no in between. There's no gray area. It's either that or the other, right?
Yeah, I honestly don't even want to think about what happens if Glenn wins the ownership battle. So we're not going to, and we're going to move into 2 words. My 2 words are not dead. We've kind of already talked about it. I don't think this season is dead yet. I don't think this team is dead yet. They're game and a half back of 6. Like, the teams in front of them aren't juggernauts. They can still make the playoffs, avoid the play-in tournament, maybe even win a series or 2. Maybe their ceiling isn't nearly as high, but there's still a lot to that can be determined down the stretch of the season. How about you, Leo? Your 2 words.
God bless you, Ryan. And those are not my 2 words, but God bless you for believing that the team is not dead and that they're still hanging in there. Just for your optimism, I might just go ahead and buy you 2 rounds of beers because that Wolves offense is not going to be in top 10 without Donte DiVincenzo out there. So
Sure.
my 2 words, Ryan, is in the same vein as yours. Yours is not dead. Well, mine is barely alive. I feel that the Wolves are just half a game, or I don't feel like they are currently half a game out from missing the play-in right now. They have a hell of a schedule still ahead of them as well too. So yes, it gets a little bit easy, but then it gets a little bit tough again. And I'm not sure playing 500 ball, which is what they're starting to even out as, is going to get them to where they need to go. They may be very likely in a win or go home situation to play in, maybe even as a 9-10 seed. So they've gone from alternating 3 or 4 game losing streaks and winning streaks to now just alternating game by game wins and losing streaks, or games won and games lost. Now, obviously today they've lost 2 in a row, losing to Cleveland and Memphis, but you're seeing it stabilize a little bit there. And so I think they're really showing us that they are a 500 team, and in the West, that's going to barely keep you alive. So that's mine, barely alive.
Yep, I agree. We'll see if they can kind of break out of it. This game at Dallas kind of feels important just because it's a tiebreaker game for Dallas. So if Dallas is continuing to be injured, or if they stick around 500, having the tiebreaker of them feels important. And just, it's a team you should beat. Like any team that is missing their best player, like this Wolves team, should be able to beat them, and they are. But Kyrie Irving, as we saw on Christmas, is dangerous. So it feels like a big game. But kind of how they all feel big at this point.
I'm going to hate myself for saying this, but the Mavs just lost to the Hornets today. So
honestly, though, this is kind of something that's been happening. That's like not what you want to see. You want to see a team have like an unexpected victory.
Absolutely.
Like when Cleveland lost to OKC by 1 billion points before that game, I was like, we're toast.
So that said, I mean, that's why I'm saying, like, I hate that I'm bringing this up, but they did just lose to the Hornets. I haven't looked at their schedule. I'm assuming they're going to have a day of rest, obviously, before they play us on Wednesday, because there's no way they can play 3 games in a row. But, I mean,
both teams, same rest situation, although Dallas does go to OKC the next day. So,
I think they should probably rest Kyrie, because that's going to be an important game against OKC. They really want to test themselves. So, no, but we'll see, man. It's going to be Dallas and Denver this week. So they have Dallas on Wednesday, and then they have Denver, I believe, on Saturday. So they do have those, the 2 days off, and that's how their weekend. So they finally get a little bit more of a slower week. So just 3 games in this calendar week.
Yep. And I think for us that put out Wolves content, I think we're a little gracious to have a little bit of breathing room to try to reset ourselves, or to put out some content without it expiring in terms of news. So we'll see. I'll be back later this week with another episode, another guest. So we'll see you guys then. Thanks for listening.
As always, get home, drive home safe.